We're still here. Hello, everybody. Thank you for coming. So I'm just making sure we have Dan, we have Ruth, Michael, Jonathan, and LaShonda. Awesome. Okay. Let's see. Can I make this go away? There we go. Okay. Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining me for our second virtual grants seminar of the summer. My name is Caitlin Costello, and I am the grants coordinator for Genesee Valley Council on the Arts. And I work with Livingston and Monroe counties to facilitate our decentralization grant. If you are not from Livingston or Monroe County, I would highly suggest you reach out to the coordinator from that county. Some of the rules may shift around a little bit, but most should be the same, but you would need to apply through that county.
Jonathan, are you hearing Caitlin? Yeah. Oh, I'll have to see.
I will, Michael, check and see where your speaker is going through on your computer. That might be why. I know sometimes I have to set it to my headphones. I will put that.
That's exactly what happened. I had
okay.
It. Thank you very much.
Yeah, of course. So I was just saying, I know you are from Monroe County, but if you are from another county, I would suggest that you apply through them. For now, please keep your audio muted, and if you have any questions, please drop them into the chat, and when we get to the end, I'll go through all of those questions as they come up. It'll just help to make sure that the process goes smoothly. So what we're going to do today is we're going to go through the PowerPoint that I have up on the screen now. And then after we go through that, I have Dan here as well as Ruth Henry. And I also have a couple other grant recipients from the past on here. So if anybody has any questions, they're going to go through and talk a little bit about what their process has been like and any tips and tricks that they might have picked up along the way that you might not think of right away. And that I might not know off the bat since I've never directly applied for our grant. So they'll go through any of that, and then we will have a little Q&A session, and you can ask me or those individuals any questions that come up throughout the course of this. Also, if a little furball or children or anything like that comes up and comes to say hi, that's totally fine. We're all stuck home, and sometimes we need some social interaction. I'm sure at some point during one of these seminars over the summer, my cat will join in and you'll just see her fluffy tail. So don't worry about little kids showing up. So let's get started. In this seminar, we're going to be talking about the different types of grants and different resources you can go to, and tips on writing the grants before getting into the specifics of the DEC grant and GBCA's rules. So there's two main types of grants, and those are monetary and non-monetary. As far as monetary goes, they can have restricted and unrestricted monies. GBCA's grant is a monetary grant, and you've probably been seeing a lot of these grants going around lately around COVID with special relief funds and things like that in their emergency category. I've got a little script here that I'm going off of. Non-monetary grants would include any residency programs, access to studios, rental equipment, things like that, which are non-monetary. Some points to consider when applying for any grant are, where are you in your current art practice? What do you want to do in the future to grow or improve that practice? And what are the needs that you could possibly need to reach that further goal? So some of the resources outside of GVCA would be within the federal government, and this can be found with the NEA, or the National Endowment on the Arts, and the National Endowment for the Humanities. There's also NYSCA, which is New York State Council on the Arts. They have been doing a lot this year. The Foundation Center and the New York Foundation on the Arts, or NYFA. So when you're thinking of applying for grants, there's a couple different things that you need to consider. The type of the award, be it monetary or otherwise, and how would that fit in with your plan? The eligibility, and is this something that you fit in and qualify for? The size of the grant, how much does the average recipient receive, and how many people usually apply. For Monroe County, about 62% of people that apply do receive funding, with the average funding being around $2,700. And for Livingston County, about 57% of those that apply are accepted, and they usually receive about $1,800. And this is across our 3 grant funding types. You also want to look into how often does this program run? Does it go once a year, twice a year? Can you apply once every 2 or 3 years? Those are all different things that you should look into. What are the deadlines, and can you get the required information needed for the deadline, as well as create a well-rounded application in that time? You need to look into the turnaround time and how their timeline works with your project. So when is the money distributed? When do you plan on having the project? Does that line up? Who is giving you the money, and do they have a good reputation? You don't want to apply for a grant and then later find out that the organization that is giving you the money isn't in good standing, and thus you don't get the money you applied for and things like that. And then you also want to look at the past recipients. Who has been funded in the past, and can you see any parallels between what they have done and what you want to do in the future? And if that correlates and gives you an idea of whether or not your project would be funded. So within the application, make sure you read all of the guidelines and follow all of the instructions. You'd be really surprised how many people miss small vital steps that end up getting them disqualified. So make sure you are looking at every single little detail. When I get the guidelines, I make sure to go through and highlight any little thing that I think could be something that could trip people up. And that's what I look for when I review the application, to make sure that everybody hits those points. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out and ask for help. My email will be listed later on, but it is grants@gvartscouncil.org. And I'm currently not in the office, but if you call our number, I would get the voicemail in a couple days. But definitely reach out for questions, because if you have a question on something, most likely someone else does, and it will help to make sure that we run the program better and can clarify any questions that may come up in the future. So, going back. So the applications usually have 3 components, and that would be the project narrative, which will be a series of questions you'll have to answer, the project budget, which is how you plan or estimate how you would spend the money should you receive those funds, and any supporting or supplemental materials. This can include artistic samples, proof of residence, things like that. So going into more specifics for each of these sections. The project narrative is a written explanation of your proposed project. Things to consider are you qualified to complete the project timeline? Can you feasibly complete the project within the year or the set amount of time for the grant? How will you market your project to the public or to us or any potential clients that you'll be working with? Who will be your target audience, and what are your expected outcomes of how many people you want to reach, how you want people to feel after seeing the project, things like that. What are the expected outcomes? Do you plan to use this to grow? Things like that. And how will you evaluate the project and whether or not it's successful? Will it be based on audience or money raised for a certain project? Things, how will you evaluate it? Going into the project budget. The budget, as I said, is a detailed itinerary of how you plan on spending the money. And it's including any and all anticipated expenses and income. Going into some of the individual terminology within it, the personnel expenses is for anyone you hire for the project, such as teachers, artists, assistants, etc., paying yourself to create the work, things like that. Non-personnel expenses are space rental, music, paying for the copyright for music and performance rights, travel, any advertising or marketing costs, things where you're not directly paying an individual person for the creation of a piece. And remaining operating expenses would be supplies, materials, or equipment rental, and this will also include PPE. Earned income is money that your project will generate, be it from ticket sales, fundraisers, or merchandise. Unearned or contributed, contributed income is money that your project receives from donations. So if you go to various businesses and you ask to donate X amount of money for your project, it can get a little bit funky between what is considered unearned and what is considered earned from a fundraiser. So you just have to look at those numbers and figure out, and it depends on how you ask for it. In-kind contributions would be anything that's donated. For example, if you are planning on performing at Sally Susie's theater and she says that she will give you the space, it would normally be $300 to rent that space for the night. That would be how much you would get in in-kind contributions, because you're not paying for that thing, but you're still using it for your program. Supporting and supplemental materials are anything that can help myself or the panel to get a better feel for your project. So this includes resumes and CVs, artist samples such as paintings you've done in the past, photos of those, videos of dances you've produced, things like that, sheet music, things you've composed. This can include your nonprofit status, and any letters of support from schools or fiscal sponsors and things like that. And this also includes lesson plans, which we will get to when we talk about the Arts and Education Program. So now we are going to start to get more into the individual portions of the DEC grant or the Decentralization Program. From now on, I'm pretty much going to refer it as the DEC program because it's a lot easier, not to be considered with or confused with the Department of Conservation. So we get, so some of the points that we're going to be discussing around the DEC grant are NYSCA, the eligibility requirements, funding categories, the application process, and the grant review and notification process. So New York State Council on the Arts is our sort of mother organization. They are the ones that we receive the funding from. And their mission for these programs is to preserve and expand the rich and diverse cultural resources that are and will be the heritage of New Yorkers. And it achieves this mission through doing these DEC grant programs, amongst many other things that they do offer. So the DEC grant was funded in 1977. I believe we have been facilitating it through Livingston County for at least 10 years, and we started funding in Monroe County about 3 years ago. The DEC grant is one of the best things that New York State can do to offer local grants, and it is distributed through local art agencies. So, getting into our basic requirements. Make sure I'm on the right page. Sorry, I've got my little script here. So, all applicants must reside within Livingston or Monroe County, as I said before. There is some abilities for you to do it if you do not reside in the county within the rules of the fiscal sponsorship, but that can be tricky sometimes, and it's best just to do something within your own county. It proves to have better results that way. And you can have an individual artist working with a fiscal sponsor who acts as the conduit to help them to produce the program, or a government entity or tribal organization. If you are a current NYSCA applicant, even if you do not receive funding, you are not able to go with the DEC program, and we will get into that later. Just wanted to touch on that point at the end of this slide. And we are here now. I thought this came later. So NYSCA grantees may not profit from a DEC program, which is why they cannot work with a DEC program and act as a fiscal sponsor for them. So there's several, for example, large theater companies within Rochester that could not act as a fiscal sponsor for a smaller artist. However, you can act as a conduit for them to use the performing space. It comes down to double dipping, as we get the money from NYSCA. If you apply directly to NYSCA and then work with a DEC recipient, you're touching into the same pool of money. So we don't want people to be double dipping. However, like I said, a DEC applicant can book a NYSCA grantee. So they could book the space from a NYSCA grantee. And new this year, prior to this, you could not list that the program was happening in the space, but for now, you can. For example, if someone is working with a little theater in Rochester, they now can say, okay, we are promoting this project, and put it on their websites and on their front banners and things like that. So what can the decentralization program fund? This would be artist fees, marketing and publicity cost, space rental and equipment, travel, and any direct administrative expenses. This year, we are also including PPE into that because we are in a world where we need to make sure that that is accessible to people. And we are also adding in this new rule about supplies and materials. So if you need to purchase a camera, for example, or upgrade a Zoom membership, things like that, you can now do that up to $1,000, but we don't want anything more than that. Things that we will not fund. So New York State agencies and departments sort of comes hand in hand as it's the same sort of pool of money. Any public or private colleges and universities, public or private schools or parochial schools, and this includes homeschool organizations. This fund is not used to help start up new organizations, but it can be used to fund a new project for the new organization. And the purchase of equipment that exceeds $1,000. And continuing this, the program will not fund cash prizes, scholarships, or awards, galas or benefits, or one-off sort of events, foods, or student projects. In order to apply, you have to be over the age of 18 or not enrolled in a school program. So going into the funding categories. We have 3 funding categories, and these are the Community Arts Program, the Individual Artist, and the Arts and Education. And these programs are open to multiple different disciplines, from visual to literary and performing arts. Applicants may submit up to 3 separate applications or up to $5,000. So you can't exceed one without the other. So some of the things that we have funded in the past include a one-man show, a storytelling summer reading program, dances, compositions, concerts of both vocal and instrumental varieties, research for the play and a stage reading, music lessons for students, crafts nights at nursing homes, and a lot more. So the first grant we're going to go into is the Community Arts Grant. And this is a event where the public is directly involved and anybody can walk up and attend it. It has some sort of community benefit and it targets an underserved population. For example, is there no visual arts, public art pieces within the community that someone can walk up and see, or do they not get access to music, things like that? There has to be something that the community is benefiting from. So some things to think about around that would be, how will your project serve to and uplift the community? Will it bring awareness to a topic? And will it bring resources to the community? So some of the rules within this are the maximum that you can request is up to $5,000. And a change from last year to this year is GVCA will fund up to 80% of the request. 20% of that must be covered by some sort of fundraising or income. So for example, if you have a grant request of $1,000, we can fund up to 800 of that dollars, and 200 has to be shown through the matching of some sort of income. And with this, nonprofits, local government entities, and individuals partnering with a fiscal sponsor can qualify. I have a whole worksheet dedicated to fiscal sponsorship because it can be quite complicated. So if you need additional information on that, please don't hesitate to reach out and I will share that information with you. But the basic idea of a fiscal sponsor is if you are an individual artist not associated with a nonprofit and you want to produce a piece, be it a concert or a choreography of a dance and performance, anything like that, you would need a fiscal sponsor to act as the conduit to pass the money through to you. However, if you are an organization that is a nonprofit and you have a 501c3 or are a government charter, things like that, then you do not require a fiscal sponsor. Your fiscal sponsor is the one that will be the applicant of record. You will be one of the contacts, but they will also be one of the contacts, and they will be the one that the check is written out to, and they will distribute the funds to you from there. This person will also help to make sure that things are being done. So for example, your final reports are turned in, any materials that I need are sent to me. They'll kind of act as that parent organization to help and make sure that you're getting on your feet and you're getting things done as needed, as well as just supporting you in the creation of your project. So the individual artist grant is for those individual artists that want to produce a piece, but it might not be to the large extent of the community arts grant. And this is to help those individual artists to grow and really create a foundation for their projects within the community. So this project must engage the community in some way, be it from a public performance or an exhibition, some sort of thing where the public can come and see what you have created. New this year, we are expanding the individual artist funding ability. In the past, it has been a flat $2,500, but this year we are opening up that range from $1,000 to $2,500. And this also gives us the ability to fund more individuals. In the past, we have only been able, per New York State rules, to fund 4, but now we have the ability to fund up to 10 if we wanted to. So this is something really good, especially for Monroe County, where we had, I want to say 11 individual artist applications last year. So we had to turn away most of those applicants, and this year, many of them can come back and apply and have the possibility of being funded. So touching on what I said earlier, applicants must be 18 at the time of application and cannot be enrolled in an education program. And same type of thing, they have to engage the community and be available for the public to come to. If you have applied for an individual artist grant in the past and you have been awarded, within the last 2 cycles, you will not qualify for this grant. This is the only grant that is the case. So our arts and education program. We are adding this year a preschool element to the program. Prior, it was K through 12 or adult. Now we are adding pre-K, which is really fun because our teeny little ones should deserve programs as well. And the arts and education program gives teaching artists the ability to go into schools or adult centers to work with individuals to teach them some sort of art. And this has to be community-based learning, so everybody's working together. However, this has to be a closed-off program. So where the community arts, anybody can walk up and join. The arts and education program has to be closed off and with the same set of participants over the course of the learning period. And there needs to be a minimum of 3 contact sessions. There can be more indirect sessions. For example, we have some groups that are composing music. So there's 3 sessions where the artist meets with the students, and then there's so much time that he spends actually programming the music programs to produce the CD of the music that the students composed. And this also has to involve school faculty in some way, shape, or form. Again, the maximum request for this is also $5,000, like the community arts. And as well, like the community arts, we are upping the funding from GVCA up to 80% of that program request. The eligibility for this would be teaching artists and nonprofits. And programs that won't be funded are ones outside of Monroe or Livingston County, and you can't do standalone assemblies or field trips, things like that. While we would love to be able to fund people to go see different shows or exhibitions, this is not the right grant for that. So, how do you apply for this grant? So the online application is now live. We are still updating our website with all of the materials, and I will send a link with the updated materials if you have not received it in a Google Drive. We were a little bit behind on things because of our deadlines from New York State and everything with COVID. So some things are still being updated, but I do have all of the material in a public Google Drive folder that you can access. So that application is now live. We are waiting until we had a couple seminars before opening it. And the application deadline is the 3rd Thursday of the month. So for Livingston County, that is September, which puts it as September 17th. And for Monroe County, that puts it as October 15th. These do feel a little bit early, but because of the way the calendar falls out, they do fall on the 3rd Thursday. And the application is due by 4 p.m. In the past, our program has been a little bit more lenient, but it will not be this year. Once it hits 4 p.m. on that date, the application will be closed and you will not be able to access it anymore. So make sure that your stuff is in early. Oh no, I did say that. Excuse me. So I am going to show you our application because it is a little bit different. So this year we are using a program called Submittable, and this makes everything online and really easy. It is a little bit more streamlined than it has been in the past. So when you select a type of grant, it will fill in the questions. When you haven't clicked anything, it looks like there isn't as many questions as there is. But once you click that button, it will bring up the individual questions for that grant. So if you look at it at first, it might seem like you won't have as much work to do. Then you'll click the button and a whole bunch more things will show up. Also new this year, we are asking for more demographic information. I really want to make sure that I am reaching all aspects of the community that I can, and I'm going to use this information to make sure that I am reaching those individuals. This information will not be shared outside of our office. So for example, it'll be your age, your ethnicity, what level of school you have completed, things like that. As well as in the past, we have had some confusion around the question of if you've ever applied for a NYSCA grant before. As I said earlier, they are 2 separate things, so we have made 2 separate questions to attempt to avoid that confusion. And one other thing that is new this year is, I find it. We have 2 questions around COVID. So how will you approach this project differently than a project created pre-COVID? And how will you work around any and all COVID-related restrictions and issues that may still be in effect in 2021? And this question is going to change depending on what type of program and what type of grant you are applying for. And it is a very tricky question to answer, but it is something that myself and the panel will need that information to make sure that we are funding the best programs that we can going forward. Let me go back to this. So as well as the hard deadlines in September and October, there is a review period. So if you do need any help or have any questions and you've completed your application, you can submit the application and send me a message and say, hey, I just need some feedback on this section. Can you review it? And I will go over it, and any notes I will have, I will send it back to you. Obviously noting that any notes and things like that does not mean that you'll be funded, but it can help to make sure that you have a strong application. And this has to be submitted at most 3 weeks before the application is due. So for Livingston County, that date would be August 27th. And for Monroe County, that would be September 24th. And again, that's 4 p.m. close of business. So for our award criteria, we have the artistic merit, and looking at the samples you have submitted and your credentials to make sure that you are who you say you are and you are going to be able to produce the program that you want to, that you can service the population and benefit it in the way that you want to, and the feasibility and the implementation. Like I said, we also will have the question on COVID to make sure that this project is feasible. There is going to be things that are not going to be possible, but we want to make sure that people are thinking of those things when applying. And as well as the budget, and make sure that all of the information is there. Things to consider would be if you are applying for a grant to get $5,000, but your project is missing around $10,000, but you don't have a plan to make up that last chunk, there is a good chance that you would not receive funding or full funding from us if you didn't give the information of where you're going to get that money, because the panel isn't going to want to sponsor a project that has a gaping hole in the project type of thing. So you would really want to think of the feasibility and the money that you're planning on getting or have already fundraised. So our applications are reviewed through a peer panel. I will go over them when they first come in and see if there's anything that I see that can be edited or changed within a quick period of time. After the application period, there is a 24-hour grace period where I will go through, see if there's anything that can be changed quickly and let you know. You do have the chance to change it, though after that period, you will not have that ability. Any edits this year as well, you will need to pass through me. So for example, if you submit the application in August, but September you realize you have a better grasp of the project and want to edit it, you'll need to send me an email to do that. And that's all within this new program. But you will be able to save and access it up until the submission time. And I know we had some issues in the past with that, but so far this year, there's been no issues when we've been using it for other application processes. But should you ever have an issue with that, please let me know and I will get in contact with people to make sure we fix that. So I will review it, then the information will be given to a panel of judges from the area that work within the arts. They may not be directly in the county or live in the county that they're working with, as long as they have a direct contact and work within that county. And they will review all of the applications and they will decide who gets funding or who does not, and give any feedback that they have seen within the application. After that, I will take the information of who has been requested to be funded by the panel to my board of directors, and they will either approve or deny it. And then in December, as a happy holidays, you will hear whether or not you were funded. For some people, it's better than others, but that is around when you would hear back, would be early December, early to mid-December. Once we have notified everybody, that is when I will also send out the contracts. And once your contract has been received, you will receive your check at our award ceremony in February. In between that period, if you are not funded, there is an appeal process. You can attempt to appeal, and there will be another panel process to decide that. Again, it'll go to the board for the decision and go from there. If the appeal does not go through, there is a chunk of funds that are held to the side, and afterward, if nobody has been funded from that appeal pool, that will be distributed to the people that were funded. Some responsibilities for the grantees. The project must take place within January 1st to January 31st, 2021. You see an asterisk there. There is a stipulation that we have put in place that if there is something COVID related that comes up where you are not able to execute your project, you may have the possibility to extend into 2022, but you will have to go through another appeal sort of process to do that. It won't automatically be funded at that point. And myself and my executive director will have the ability to veto that, whether or not we think it would be feasible at that time. So there is the ability for that, but you should not plan on that being how you execute the project. Any public publicity or marketing materials will also need to be submitted to me, or Facebook events, things like that, just so we can help share it and to make sure that you are upholding your marketing needs and things that you said you would do within your application. And any unspent funds must be returned to GBCA for redistribution. If you're not able to do your project, we want to be able to give that money to people so that they can do their projects even better than they already had planned. So that's where that comes in. And the last thing would be grantees need to submit a final report within 30 days of the completed project or January 31st, with that COVID stipulation being there. So some revisions that have come through because of COVID, virtual audiences will be accepted in the tracking. So if you have a virtual concert and you're able to see that 300 people have viewed the video, those can be tracked within your audience over the period of time when that was live. If you did apply as a 2020 grantee, any and all issues that came up this year will not affect you next year. We understand that this year was an interesting year and still continues to be, and that does not negatively affect you and your ability to apply next year. And with that, if you received money this year and you have to postpone your project to next year, you are still able to apply for a separate grant, but it has to be two completely separate projects. For example, if you are doing a summer concert series and you plan on having the one that was supposed to be this year in June of 2021, and you want to have a separate one in July, they have to be completely different composers, different target audience, something along that line that shows that they are completely separate. And we also, as I showed, have the options for delivering your project around COVID and the ability. So, some tips to consider when applying. Make sure that you, like I said, read all of the guidelines and make sure that you genuinely fit with our grant. Some applications just don't quite fit with us, and that's totally okay. And if you read our stuff and you find that it might not be the best fit, still reach out, because I might have some information that could help you to find a better fit for the future. Make sure that your award criteria matches up and that any and all language and things make sense. Along the lines of language, make sure that the verbiage that you're using makes sense for the type of program you're applying for. I did have a couple applications in the past, both last year and previous years as I've been reviewing them, where there's been notes from the panel where you could tell that people were trying to make it sound better by using different words, and it kind of sounded like they just used a thesaurus to look up big words. You don't want to do that because that can be pretty clear when you don't know the actual word, and you wouldn't want to be using verbiage that doesn't sound like it goes with your project idea. And make sure that the application is clear and concise. What you can say with 20 words, say with 20 versus 50. There is character limits within the application, but you don't need to use all those characters if you can say it clearly and in a way that people will understand. We have had applications in the past that have used all of the characters and had very long answers, but the panel still didn't understand what they were saying because they just rambled on and on and on and didn't have a clear point. Use the rough draft option. I know from what I looked over last year and from what other people have said in the past, it can be very, very beneficial. So make sure that you are using that option. Look through your presentation for consistency and make sure that the points that you say you want to hit, you are hitting clearly. Make sure your materials also look professional. You wouldn't want to, if you can't, submit something that is just a Google document. Use letterheads where you can and use official letters versus just an email chain. Things like that can really take your grant to a higher level. And for your fees and expenses, make sure that they are industry standard. Your artists need to be paid, and they should be paid, and they should be paid at the standard that the community is paying outside of grants. Even if it's a smaller project and it will raise your fees and things, everybody needs to be paid an equal amount. As I said earlier, it's better to stay local when you can. You'll get more community support and have more background and knowledge about the location. Look and see for similar or prior funding, who has funded things in the past, perhaps within your area, and what has gone through, or what can you piggyback of with another idea, and how can your project build and help to improve the community. If you have applied in the past, make sure you review any prior panel feedback so that you know that you are improving and building on your past experiences to make it the best application you can. And don't be afraid to ask for help. I'm always available at email. So if you have any questions or want to set up an appointment, I have plenty of time to set up Zoom meetings. As I said, my name is Caitlin, and my email is grants@gvartscouncil.org. That number is our office number, so I'm not there currently, but we have a pretty good system of making sure that I get the information of who has called looking for me within a few days. So I will leave that up on the screen for a minute, but now we are going to go, maybe I can't. Okay. Now we're going to shift to our former grantees, going through and just talking a little bit about what has worked for them in the past and what their process was on any sticky points that they hit that they learned from last year. So I'm not sure if Dan or Ruth wants to talk first. Oh, Ruth lost her video.
I guess I'll go first.
Okay.
I mean, I would say, first of all, Caitlin, the presentation is great. It's really concise and very helpful. I think for people who have applied before, still watching it is great because I pick up on different things every time I hear it. I would just say, you know, if you've got a really clear, concise grant narrative that fits well with what your organization wants to do, or if you're an individual artist, if it fits exactly what you want to do, then it's just much more honest, and you won't run into this weird thing where you're creating words because it's like a narrative that's coming out of you. And so if you can, as much as you can, make sure that works. I think sometimes groups, especially organizations, will come up with a project to get grant funding, and that doesn't really work very well. You know, you really have to find something that like is totally aligned with your vision, and then it'll be a really natural process to write the grant. The other thing I was thinking about tonight in this group, I think LaShonda may be an individual artist, I think, and you know, okay, good, yep. So the one thing I would suggest with that, sometimes it works great. You can create a proposal and get funding as an individual artist, and it works really well. The other thing I would sort of encourage would be to partner with an organization, because sometimes that ends up being a really rewarding thing, and it may be an easier way to get a proposal funded. So your fee might be $1,000 or something, and and so my group is Madrigalia, and you want to come and do some sort of a combination thing with us, singing some music and you doing your thing and whatever it might be. But that could be almost a better and more rewarding experience, maybe. But just something to put out there. I think the other thing I said at one last week, I said, yeah, the big thing is if you can get your grant application completed early and send it in for some review, it's great. The other aspect of that is if you're waiting on somebody's CV or a estimate of cost or something, you might find that it drags right to the deadline, and then you're totally stressed out. So the earlier you can complete it, the better. And then if you can submit it a week early, good for you. I mean, personally, that would be my goal. I never hit that goal. I gotta say, I'm like at 3 o'clock on the afternoon it's due. But still, the earlier you can do it, the better. And that's about it. I mean, I think, and also the budget aspect of it. If you're not clear about what all the terminology on the budget is, just ask Caitlin questions. It's really great when you can, especially the in-kind thing, to show that you've got community support for a project. So that's a really important part of the budget. But otherwise, it's just, when you have questions, Caitlin is great. Just send her an email and she'll get that information out, because I think that a lot of us stumble over some of these things, which are really easy to take care of, and we just don't ask. So I think that's it.
Yeah, and going off of what you said as far as the partnership, it can be a really good way to learn skills that you might not have gathered on your own, and sort of use it as a mentorship sort of thing without being an official one, and to use those skills that you might be able to learn from them and the contacts that you can get. It could help you to get a wider reach. It might not, depending on the organization you partner with, but what going off Dan said, that is a very good idea as well.
Well, I would say oftentimes too, individual artists, they bring out things from organizations that we didn't really think about. We're sort of insular. The Allentoffs are here tonight, so that orchestral thing, and I'm here from the choral part, and then we suddenly come together, and it's sort of an eye-opening experience about what we can do together. Mm-hmm. And I've done concerts with a storyteller, and I've done a historian, and it's just amazing what happens when you bring in somebody else, an individual artist with their talents. It's eye-opening. I think probably more to the audience, because if we're the ones that are playing the violin or singing, we're not getting the whole experience. We're getting a little bit of that, but the people that are watching it are really just sort of blown away by how these different arts components come together. So
yeah. So Ruth, do you have anything that you would like to add? Oh, you're muted right now. There you go. Yay.
So I want to just second everything that Dan said. I think that I had those notes to say too, a lot of them. And it's very nice to meet you finally, because you've just been a name and now I know who you are.
Yes.
And, you've done a great job. You've just been as efficient as you can be going through all this stuff. So so for the community arts grant, so I've got both a community arts and an individual artist grant. And I want to just reiterate what Dan had said about if you need any support material or you're relying on somebody else to give you something, oh my goodness, they will run you right to the deadline and then you're going to have to call them 7 times. I mean, start like next week. I mean, start asking for it. It's okay to have it early. It's so much better to have it early. It'd save you so much stress. So I would just encourage everybody to, just on your calendar, move up the deadline a week. And that way, you can, make sure that you get it in. I have not been able to submit 2 grants in the past because the organization I was trying to partner with, they just kind of flaked out. They just like, oh, this person's on vacation. Our accountant is on vacation. We can't access the whatever, the last year's budget or whatever. I was like, what? So now you're sunk. So, so just really get ahead of that. Those deadlines. Another thing is, if you're doing promotional material, we get so, into the graphics and the balance and all that. But then you got to remember to do the logo and that little blurb, which is kind of a long blurb. So you can like do the minimum font I try to do because it takes up a lot of space if you're doing a postcard or whatever, but you got to have it on there. So just be really diligent and try to remember that anything you print has got to have that. So that's one thing I would encourage. Another thing I found in working with, coordinating with like other nonprofits as an individual artist collaborating. For one thing, I think it gives you additional credibility, especially if you're just starting out. If you're just starting out, you're just you. I mean, who are you? Okay, it just gives you some depth if you can actually coordinate with a nonprofit that's already out there, especially if it's a nonprofit that is serving the underserved public already. It just gives your grant that much more of a head start because right there you've already checked that box. So I would encourage trying to figure out if there's any way that you can take whatever it is that you are dreaming of in your mind, if you're an individual artist, and try to see if there's some way that it can be coordinated with another organization. And for individual artists, and if you're doing the community arts, those are the only 2 I can speak to. I think we all have a tendency, if you're creative, to just keep going with it, like, oh, woo, and then we can do this, and then we can do this, and then we can woo, and I think Ben Franklin said it very well. He said, clip the wings of your chickens and your dreams, lest you forever be chasing after them. You just have to like box it up. You gotta say, no, maybe next time, but this time we're just gonna do this. We're just gonna do this. You gotta be able to put it, to describe it. It's gotta be manageable. You've gotta be able to, package it so that you can not get so sidetracked with all the other things that it could possibly be. You got to keep it into like one thing for this one time. And then just finally, the final thing is, as you're going along, just keep in mind, you are going to have to give an accounting at the end. So be organized with your expenditures and saving your receipts and, thinking ahead because yep, you gotta, 30 days after you're done, you have to do that final report. It just makes it so much easier at the end to just have an envelope set aside that all your receipts go into it, and then it's all right there, and it makes it easy at the end. So.
Awesome, thank you. I had a couple notes off of that. As far as the partnerships, I do get a email from NYSCA explaining anybody that has applied and or received funding. So if you are finding it difficult to find a fiscal sponsor, I can go through that list and give you a list of people not to contact, as well as people that you could attempt to contact, because it can be very discouraging if you're going, oh, I tried to reach this person, but they already got it. And I tried this person, but you don't know who is even eligible. So I do get that usually around August. So at that point, if you're still looking for people, then I can help with that. And as far as the deadline and receiving feedback, Last year, I believe I had about 75% of the applications come in on the application day. And it's kind of like if you're submitting a paper, I can only go through them as quickly as possible. And I want to be able to make sure I'm giving you the most adequate and helpful feedback. So doing it before that time is the best way to do that. So I highly encourage, even if it's just like the Monday before, that's so much better because there's a lot that comes through all in one day. And by 4 o'clock, my brain is mush, and I'm probably not going to have as good as feedback as I would at the beginning of the day.
And your voicemail is full. Your mailbox is full.
That too. Yeah, and people are calling and scheduling appointments and things, and it's going, I'm reading them between things. So yes, if you can do it earlier, definitely do it earlier. So now let's open it up to any questions. I don't have any in my group chat, but if you just want to pop in and say any questions. Okay, Mike.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, thank you guys so much. That was a lot of really great information, especially a bit about individual artists. I do have a question that I hope I can get clarified. Is partnering with an organization and finding a fiscal sponsor, is that the same thing?
Yes. Yep. So,
Okay.
yeah, so if you are an individual artist and you're looking for a nonprofit
organization.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Caitlin?
Okay, that's all the questions I had.
Okay. Yeah.
Does the fiscal sponsor get any of the grant money?
They will get the check, but they do, that would be something you'd have to work out with them, but for the most part for ours, that we do not have them take a cut from that.
Okay.
And I think, yeah, John, you wanted to say something?
Well, thanks. I just wanted to thank you for a great presentation. It's been so wonderful working with you. I echo what Dan and Ruth were saying. And I was thinking about COVID considerations, just in terms of obviously the limits of what we can do and the sort of unpredictable guidance now we're getting from New York State. In terms of, how will virtual rehearsals or concerts count towards it? Obviously, we've been doing that to help satisfy our requirements this year. But is there kind of a succinct policy for next year in terms of when things go virtual involving people, will that count towards a grant?
So what we are doing, we had actually one, you were one of our ones that sort of went virtual, but one of our other Rochester applications, it was either Real Mind or Namey, I get them mixed up because they both came from the same individual, actually took their film festival entirely online. And they had an actual form that you had to fill out before you could access the video that was sort of that demographic information, so they were able to see who was in the audience and what age they were and where they were from. They had some people from like Belgium watching, which was really cool, but it was like, whoa, how did you get a hold of this? So any and all individuals, individual views or playback time, things like that from YouTube or what other websites use for analytics will count towards that audience count. As far as rehearsals, I'm not entirely sure. I will need to double check into that to see like if there's any specific guidance. I don't remember seeing anything in the manual I received, but again, everything is changing daily. So I will check into that, but I don't think as of right now there's any stipulations as long as you are able to have adequate rehearsals where you get the practices in and it is productive and conducive for the project you are trying to produce.
That's a great insight. I'll be curious just because I know that sometimes in terms of doing virtual rehearsals, it can be very effective. And obviously, as we get back to live rehearsals, hopefully at some point, some people may not be able to join in the live rehearsals depending on the vulnerable population and so forth. That's something we're looking into as well for all groups.
Yeah, so I will definitely reach out to my contact at the state as well as other coordinators to see if there's any specific guidance that they might have, and I will get back to you on that.
Oh, thank you so much.
You're welcome. I do have something that'll be emailing out to everybody. Dan, I did leave you off this email. You don't need to fill it out again. I do have a sort of exit ticket, end of seminar little survey to rate the presentation and any questions or feedback that you might think of after the fact, so that I'm able to contact you directly and answer any of those questions. So you'll be getting that once we wrap this up. And I will also email out the Google Drive, because I don't think, LaShonda, you might be, but I don't remember seeing your name in our email list. So to make sure that you get that information, since we're still working on updating our website.
Okay.
As well
I did
as
get the link to the Google Drive.
Oh, okay, good.
Documents.
We're still updating that stuff, so I just want to make sure everybody has the information so that they can go research it and read those things after. So, yeah. Does anybody have any other questions or thoughts that have come up?
I just have one question, and we can discuss this, privately if you want to. But I was a little confused about the Arts and Ed program, when you're talking about the only 80% of funding. So you're saying 20% of that should be cash contributions. So if you're going into schools, where is that 20% coming from? It's not like paying audience unless the schools contribute.
Yes, the school, it used to be in the past that the school had to contribute up to 50% of that.
Okay.
That's since changed, but that could come from fundraisers, or if, for example, you're doing a production of some sort, a program, and doing ads in that program, concessions, things
Gotcha.
like that. It would, the same general idea, just with those tweaks to make it fit a school setting.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions you can think of in the moment? Okay. Well, I will send you that survey in the next few minutes, and I am available Monday through Friday, roughly 9 to 4:30, depending on what time I get going. And yeah. All right. Thank you, everybody, for joining, and I hope you have a great rest of your night.
Thank you.
you so much.
Bye, everybody.
Take care, everybody.
Bye-bye.